Hello there, good evening. Welcome to Look North, our top story tonight. Less than a week after Bradford celebrates a year of culture, the council wants to increase council tax by 15%.
The money that we're using is borrowed money, and we cannot continue to use borrowed money to run council services.
We'll ask if other councils could follow. Also tonight, a father who lost his daughter to kidney failure donates one of his own to another child. A York teacher living through the LA wildfires speaks about the ordeal of evacuating her home. And catch him if you can, the 10-year-old fell runner from the Dales, winning awards across the region.
And for a moment, it felt like spring was in the air in York. The daffodils were out, the sky was blue. Just how long will this weather last? Join me for the detailed forecast.
Thanks for your company this evening. It's Wednesday, the 15th of January. How did it get to there already? Now, less than a week ago, Bradford was celebrating the beginning of its year as City of Culture. But today, the council has been speaking about its financial troubles and says it wants to increase council tax by almost 15%. Now, council tax pays for services like your bin collections, the upkeep of the parks, social care, and local authorities can increase that council tax by up to 4.99% a year without having a referendum. Leeds, Kirklees and North Yorkshire have all said that they plan to do this for those living in their areas, but Bradford have asked the government for special permission to increase their council tax by up to 14.99%. Now that would mean someone living in a Band A property could pay up to £170 extra over a year, and those in higher band properties will be paying hundreds of pounds more. Our Bradford political reporter Aisha Iqbal is across this story. She's been in the city centre for us tonight. Aisha, just explain, why have they got to do this?
Well, Amy, it's been something that's been looming on the horizon for a while, the Bradford Council's financial woes, something we've discussed a lot on Look North over the last couple of years. In fact, almost exactly a year ago today, I was standing right here and I was telling people that the council had reached an agreement with the government, a special agreement, to allow it to raise more money through an emergency fund, essentially, by borrowing more and by also allowing it to sell off some of its surplus buildings and land. Well, all that work has been going on behind the scenes, but it simply hasn't been enough. And that's what brings us here to what some might say is a perfect storm that's been gathering for local taxpayers, and some of them have been sharing their thoughts with my colleague Gemma Dillon today.
People reacted with shock in Bradford today when they heard about the council's plans.
I feel that we're struggling as it is, and I'll have to do some sort of research into other, but I don't feel very good.
I think it's inevitable. Central government funding to places like Bradford has been slashed and slashed over the last 20 years, and particularly with the social care budget having to be handled by local authorities, they've got nothing left in the coffers.
Bradford is, of course, UK City of Culture 2025, and the authority spent £50 million on a flagship new music venue, Bradford Live. That's double the £25 million it was expected to cost, and it still stands empty. So has this year of culture added extra pressure on the council's books?
You'll have seen from the council budget, there's only 2% of our budget is spent on sport and culture. 2/3 of our budget, nearly 65%, is spent on adult social care and children's social care. That's where the financial pressures are for the council. The money for City of Culture has been brought in, the vast majority of it directly from government, from DCMS, National Heritage Lottery Fund, and from the Arts Council. And that's the money they're spending to give us a really great year this coming year.
City of Bradford Council aren't the only authority feeling financial strain, but the Local Government Association says it has faced some unique challenges.
The council tax base is what we call low, so it has more Band A and Band B properties, more generally, I think, more terraced houses, things like that, and that means an increase brings in less money than it would in my council of Milton Keynes, where we have more higher value properties. The problem with that is in places like Bradford, where they have high levels of deprivation, which also means they have high levels of need, particularly in things of children's services. When they put up council tax, they get less money in.
The authority's financial problems are largely driven by a huge overspend in its children's services, which were taken over by an independent trust in 2023. So great were the many challenges the authority faced that last year the council had to request special permission from the then Conservative government to borrow an extra £220 million over 2 years.
The government quite rightly stepped in and took children's services off Bradford Council, and now we see Bradford Council reporting £130 million loss, as well as children's services being an additional risk factor to them of £150 million. So without doubt, the diabolical management that Bradford Council have had over children's services has had a negative impact now on all of the council taxpayers.
The money that we're using is borrowed money, and we cannot continue to use borrowed money to run council services. We have to get back to just using the money that we have to spend on those services, and no more than that.
And with all the bills stacking up for the authority, the question is, will this proposed hike in council tax keep them afloat? Gemma Dillon, BBC Look North.
Now, as we heard there, a big factor in Bradford Council's financial woes is the cost of running adult services and children's services. In fact, it eats up 2/3 of the total money available to the council. And one sobering statistic, I've been told, that the total spend, the total cost of those two departments alone is more than the total council tax collections that Bradford Council makes. So all those pressures continue in the background with this latest intervention, as do calls nationally for reform on how social care is funded. But the bigger picture for local taxpayers, that debt burden continues to grow. In fact, Bradford Council has borrowed £300 million plus over the last 3 years. Their total debt burden is going to be £900 million, I'm told, soon. And when you add on the sometimes eye-watering rates of interest, we're looking at £1 billion of debt that the council is going to have. Now, the council tells me that this is part of life for local authorities, and the bigger picture is that this latest intervention is going to be important in helping solve long-term problems.
Aisha Iqbal, thank you for your time. OK, we're going to stay with the services that our councils run, and a report today about special educational needs provision says that we are in desperate danger of failing an entire generation of children. The Public Accounts Committee, which is made up of a cross-party group of MPs, was highly critical of the SEND system and described it as unaffordable for local authorities. Leeds City Council is one of the worst in England when it comes to assessing children for special educational needs within the recommended 5 months. Beth Parsons has more.
Children with SEND have, I believe, been forgotten for far too long.
Words from the Education Secretary, as today a new report described the special educational needs system as having reached crisis point. A couple of 100 miles from that discussion is 9-year-old Cademan from Yeadon.
So this one is my favourite.
He was diagnosed as autistic 2 years ago and has changed schools twice, as his mum Helen tries to navigate the complex process of getting him the right support.
I think in the past I would have been very much of the view that it's all schools' fault and they're not doing enough, but I now see it from a slightly different angle, and I've come to realise over time that actually a lot of schools are doing their absolute best, but the reality is that they are limited.
In March last year, Helen applied for an educational healthcare plan known as an EHCP, which should set out guidance on how best to meet a child's needs. Nationally, applications for these have soared by 140% over the last decade. The government labels 20 weeks as the maximum amount of time a child should have to wait. Cademan has waited 42. If he doesn't get one soon, there's a risk he'll have to change school again and go back to mainstream without the support. The success rate of meeting this time frame varies massively across our region. According to the report, Leeds is only getting it done for 8% of children. Kirklees is at 13%. Meanwhile, Calderdale and York are both more than 96%. In a statement, Leeds City Council say they've seen significant demand pressures, issuing over 900 new EHCPs last year. They say they're investing significantly in provision, practice and process relating to SEND in Leeds.
Parents are faced with very, very different experiences, as you say, with places like Leeds failing to meet for the vast majority of parents this statutory requirement to try and process the education and healthcare plan within 20 weeks.
The highly critical report today describes the whole system as in crisis. It makes a number of recommendations, including better support for children, whether they're in mainstream schools or ones with special provisions, regardless of waiting for an EHCP. There are also plans for more money.
We'll be setting out more this year on the direction of travel, but through the budget, an extra £1 billion going in to support for children with SEND, additional investment around capital. But this is a complex and challenging area in terms of the longer term reform that I believe is required.
I like them in importance, so...
Meanwhile, stuck in a system in need of a rebuild, children like Caedmon continue to wait. Beth Parsons, BBC Lit North, Yeadon.
Gosh, it's quite an eye-opener, is that report. James Vincent, our political editor, joins us now. James, we know that councils are under so much pressure, but they're going to get a massive shock, aren't they, as we've just heard, when it comes to special educational needs funding?
They are, absolutely, and it's a classic example of Caedmon's story is a very specific story, but it's going to affect everybody in the long run, purely because the accounting rules for councils are going to change quite quickly and quite soon. So at the moment, as Beth said in her report, the demand for people for educational plans has gone up by 140%. The funding has gone up, but it's not matched pace. So pretty much every council is overspending at the moment. So they're overspending, that's creating a deficit. Experts think that that deficit by March 2026 could be nearly £5 billion across the country. At the moment, because the government changed the rules in 2020, councils don't have to add it onto their accounts at the moment. So it's not really part of their budgets when they're setting out whether they're doing well or doing not so well in terms of counting the pennies. But March 2026, those rules will end, and suddenly that £5 billion will go on to councils' budgets. And the Public Accounts Committee today released this report, think that nearly half of councils may go bust because of this extra pressure happening suddenly.
Goodness me, that's quite sobering, is that, James? So we've heard about Bradford's funding woes, but they're not alone in this, are they?
They're not. It's not just Bradford, and we've heard a lot about Bradford in the last few weeks. Some of it great, some of it not so great. There are other councils that are going to be asking for this up to 15% increase in their council tax bill. Doesn't mean they're going to get it. The government have got to approve it, and then there's got to be a referendum. But it's a kind of a sign of where Bradford is at and how much trouble they're in budget-wise. There are other councils that are going to be doing it, but we all know that this time of year is when councils start to set their budgets. We've already heard that Wakefield Council is going to be losing about 270 jobs. We're expecting to hear from Sheffield and North Yorkshire in the next week or so. There is going to be a lot to reorganise in local government, and the new Labour government, hasn't quite said exactly what it's going to do, and we don't know at the moment whether there's going to be any more money for local councils.
James, thank you. It is a story we'll keep coming back to. January is the time when all the bills mount up, don't they? And I'm sure many of our viewers will be concerned, so we'll help navigate them through all that in the coming weeks. Thanks, James. OK, let's have a look at some other news coming into our newsroom now. The jury at the trial of a man accused of murdering a teenager in Leeds has started considering verdicts. 18-year-old Jamie Mee was stabbed to death and a 16-year-old seriously injured when they were dragged out of a taxi in Armley in March 2023. 23-year-old Ranai Wilkes was arrested at Leeds Bradford Airport last year. He denies murder and attempted murder. The planned closure of a cheese packing plant near Ripon in North Yorkshire has been met with concern from local councillors. Saputo Dairy, who also own the Wensleydale Creamery at Hawes, which will remain open, plan to move the packing plant from Kirkby Maltseed to Nuneaton, putting around 80 jobs at risk. Local councils said it would be a significant blow to the local community. A councillor from North Yorkshire has said he hopes the recent damage to roads by icy weather will refocus efforts on fixing potholes. Tomorrow we'll be reporting further on that issue. We want to see the worst of your potholes. This really gets you all going. Send us your pictures to look.north@bbc.co.uk or scan the QR code on your screen. There it is. And we'll feature as many of your pictures as we can on tomorrow's programme. Now, whilst we've been experiencing freezing cold temperatures here, as you've probably seen widely reported, there have been some wildfires in LA. This is just devastating, isn't it? Sian McArdle is from York and she now lives with her family in Los Angeles, where she works at a local school. Well, earlier I caught up with her as she explained how they'd all had to be evacuated from their home.
We woke up in the morning by these alerts going off on all of our cell phones saying, evacuate now, wildfires in your area. We put everything in the car. And then we went outside. We noticed a lot of the neighbours were leaving. We got on the freeway and we drove down to my school campus because we didn't know where we were going to go. The hotels were all full. And that journey down into my school was extremely frightening, because the sky was red, there was a lot of smoke. It was just a very, very, like an experience none of us have ever had before, and it felt like end of times.
You're lucky that you've been able to return home, but some of your friends haven't been that fortunate, have they? Tell me about that.
But we have 3 close friends who've lost their homes. One of them, she's already managed to secure an apartment, and we're giving bits of furniture. We're all going over on Saturday as a friendship group to get her furnished in her new apartment.
You've gone back to school. The school has reopened.
Yes.
What kind of trauma are you having to deal with the students there? Because presumably a lot of them have lost their homes and they're seeing these scenes like we are unfolding on the news.
They all know somebody who's lost a home. Some students are very anxious. Some of our students have got asthma. So we're just trying to create a calm environment at school. We're not talking too much about it because we don't want the students to overly focus on it. So we are sort of trying to get back to normal life in school, but we are providing counselling.
And Sian, just describe to me, what is the atmosphere like out on the streets in LA?
Obviously, you'll see in the media, there's been stories of people looting and doing that kind of thing. But what we're seeing here is this incredible response of generosity and compassion from the people of Los Angeles and beyond.
This might not be the end of the nightmare. You are still on high alert, aren't you, for those winds that you've been told could pick up again?
I think we're all going to have a sense of unease moving forward, because now this has happened, what we will all know, that we can have a ferocious fire like this that can take out a town of 42,000 people. I mean, this is a town the size of Durham has burnt down. What we all know now is this could happen again.
Well, Sian, our thoughts are with you and with your friends over there. Stay safe. Now to the story of 700 people who've come forward after an appeal for a kidney for a 12-year-old boy living in care in Leeds. The transplant team at Leeds Children's Hospital says it's been a phenomenal response. It really has, hasn't it? Meanwhile, a man from Tadcaster who gave his kidney to an 11-year-old girl after his own daughter sadly died from kidney disease has been speaking to our reporter Olivia Richwald.
I love you so much and I hope to see you again soon. Bye. Kiss, kiss. Bye.
She was a rare sunshine. She was always smiling, no matter what procedure she'd have done or how badly she was feeling in hospital. And she went through some dark times with her, but she was always smiling. Everybody loved her.
Sarah Emmett was born with a genetic kidney condition. When she was 7, her parents appealed for a life-saving donation.
Will you give me your kidney?
I'd like to do.
Today?
I would if I could.
Hundreds of people offered to be a living donor, and Sarah received a kidney and survived for another 12 months before she died from complications in 2021, aged 8. Now her dad has donated one of his own kidneys to save the life of an 11-year-old from Devon. He says it's what Sarah would have wanted.
I always wanted to give Sarah a kidney, but I wasn't a match. And then last year I saw an appeal, a dad asking for a live kidney donor. And I saw the similarities between his daughter and my daughter and Sarah would have been the same age as her. I just said, yes, you can have one of mine.
Andy donated his kidney in November. A healthy person can live a normal life with just one, and the recipient of the kidney no longer has to endure hours of dialysis.
Not everybody who comes forward can actually donate a kidney. They have to go through stringent tests that can last anywhere between 3 to 6 months. The most important thing is the healthy individuals who are donating kidney now remain healthy for the life, and their health is not affected.
Last week, Leeds City Council made an urgent appeal for a donor to save a 12-year-old boy in care who has kidney failure. 700 people have come forward.
It was quite an unprecedented step. We've not done that before as Leeds City Council, but we've been absolutely overwhelmed by the positive response. Jack's a lovely 12-year-old boy. He loves to build Lego, he loves to see his friends, he loves to watch YouTube videos, he's got a great sense of humour. Yeah, he's just your average 12-year-old boy with those interests. He's lovely.
Meanwhile, this dad has given someone else's child the gift of life.
Have you heard from the little girl's family? How's she doing?
I got a message from a dad this morning, to say it was so nice to see her skipping off to school that they've not seen. It's like I've got a totally different child.
What would Sarah have said if she'd known her dad had done this?
Oh, she'd been dead proud of me. Yeah.
What an amazing thing, such a heartwarming story there. We're going to end with another child now. A 10-year-old fell runner is being hailed as a star of the future after winning the Under-11s West Yorkshire Cross Country League. Callum, a pupil at Cecil Primary, is also North Yorkshire champion and trains 3 times a week on the fells near his home in the Yorkshire Dales. We've been out training with Callum, his dad Mark, his twin brother Finley, and there she is, Sister Maya.
I'm Callum. I'm 10 years old and I've just won the West Yorkshire series races. When I'm running, I just try either get to the next person, or if I'm running, just maintain the pace and keep going forwards.
Fell running's the main sport. We go to most weekends. We'll be somewhere up and down the Dales or in the Lake District, doing it as a family.
Very competitive in everything we do. It's always a race. On Monday, sometimes I go for a steady jog when I feel like it or something. Tuesdays is Settle Harriers, and then on Thursday, sometimes I go for a run with my dad. My brother's won quite a lot. At Milan, he came second to me. When you run, you forget about the stuff that happened before.
We're really proud of Callum, of all his achievements. To be #1 North Yorkshire runner and #1 West Yorkshire runner is an amazing achievement. And he puts in the hard work, he's dedicated, and I'm sure he's one to watch for the future.
I want to compete for my country and my county, and yeah.
It's just the enjoyment for us that's the main thing, and then whatever comes as an added bonus really, whether that be a county vest or an international vest in the future, we'll just have to see.
I hope my kids are watching because I struggle to get them to walk around the block, never mind go fell running 3 times a week.
Tough conditions. I mean, they wouldn't have been able to do that in the last few days, but I mean, just how quick has that snow gone? I mean, there was 40 centimetres up there last week.
And today's glorious daffodils. You showed daffodils at the beginning of the programme. They can't be real.
Yes, in Fulford. They're out. And snowdrops. And you'd think it was planned. This is the Yorkshire Dales, Upper Wharfdale, and you can see, if you look very closely, there's a little bit of snow on that top ridge, which is above 1,000 feet. You can see the River Wharf in the bottom there, which is very full. But the snow has gone very, very quickly indeed. The next picture is Caton Bay. It's been like the middle of spring today. And just look at the mist and fog. It's beautiful as this. The mist and fog just draining down the cliff edges there into the North Sea. So you've sent some fantastic pictures in the last 24 hours. Keep them coming in and we'll try and get them on Look North tomorrow night. So for your headline for the next 24 hours, not quite as mild. We've been in double figures today. Tomorrow looks dry with some sunshine, a bit of fog first thing, but temperatures just a few degrees down on where we've been. High pressure in charge. I think Friday and the weekend, the air will be a little bit cooler. It's going to come up from more of a south or southeasterly direction. We'll be more prone to some low cloud mist and fog, but high pressure keeps these weather fronts out to the northwest, so the fine and dry weather continues. Now, there has been a lot of fog across Lincolnshire today, and I think that gives us a signal for us tonight in that the Trent Valley, parts of the Vale of York and the Valley Bottoms, Wharfdale, down towards Airedale, may well get some fog. Elsewhere, it looks dry and clear. So at the moment, we're all in the clear, but that fog across Lincolnshire may be expanding, as I say, into the Trent Valley. We'll have a widespread slight frost, not the -11s we had at the weekend, but nevertheless down to -1. There could be some ice on untreated surfaces. Tomorrow's high water times, Scarborough 5:41, Bridlington at 2 minutes past 6. So if you wake up to fog, it could take several hours to clear, but it should clear. And then it's another glorious January day. It's dry, lots of blue sky, lots of sunshine. Not quite the 11s and 12s we've had today, but nevertheless 8 or 9 in Huddersfield and Bradford. Not too bad. That's 48 degrees Fahrenheit with a light southwest wind. Friday, generally more cloud around. Into the weekend, bit of a mixed picture. Some mist and patchy fog in places, some sunshine, feeling cooler, but early next week it's quiet, fine and settled temperatures, not far from average. That, Amy, is the forecast.
As much as I love the snow, it is nice to feel that sunshine
It's
on your face,
gorgeous,
isn't
definitely.
it? Bit of warmth. Well, that is it from us. I am back with the late news at 10:30 this evening. I do hope you can join me then. But bye for now.